film by Disney Pixar, and it is directed by Lee Unkrich, I think that's how you say his name, who directed Toy Story 3 and has worked on some of the best animated movies ever made, like Toy Story 2, Monsters, Inc., and Finding Nemo as a co-director. This is a movie about a kid from a Hispanic culture who lives in this family who loves making shoes. It's their passion to make shoes. They make shoes all the time, and they hate music because of this thing that happened in their family tree. They have a huge family history, and there was something involving music that made them hate music, and they don't allow anyone to play music. But the only problem is the main character, Miguel, is a guy who loves music and looks up to this guy who's sort of like the Frank Sinatra of his culture, who is one of the greatest musicians of all time, one of the greatest singers, one of the greatest musicians ever. He looks up to this guy, he's like his idol, and he adores this guy, and he wants to go and be a musician, but his family won't let him. He ends up trying to pursue his passion, and that leads him to going into this other purgatory world, which is like the afterlife, and he meets a bunch of people that have deceased, the ghosts of those people. It's basically him taking an adventure into the afterlife, but it's also about following your dreams and people not letting you accomplish your dreams. And even besides that, there is a lot to dissect from this movie that I can't really say without saying spoilers, because one of the things I loved about Coco's marketing is that it didn't show really anything in the trailers. We didn't see much of this movie at all. And I really appreciate that in a marketing standpoint, if you don't show your movie enough, but actually like tease it really well. Coco is a movie that I was really looking forward to because Pixar kind of shaped my childhood. The Incredibles is one of my favorite movies of all time. The Toy Story trilogy are some of my favorite movies. They're some of the best animated movies ever made, I think. And Incredibles in particular was on repeat over and over and over again as a kid. I can't wait for Incredibles 2. That new teaser came out. That gave me goosebumps. It gave me chills. I was so excited to see that teaser. And even as I got a bit older, other movies like Up and WALL-E and other things like Monsters, Inc. really ended up on replay in my house because they touched me so well. I enjoyed them so much as a kid. But the thing with Pixar and a lot of animated movies that are really good, as you get older, you start to appreciate them even more as you're an older kid for the story and the deep morals and the things that this movie can offer for adults. Sure, they're family movies, but the thing about most good family movies is that they appeal to adults even more than they appeal to kids, which is what Pixar does very often. Pixar is one of my favorite studios for movies ever. I grew up adoring this studio, and I still love them to this day. But as this decade has gone on, the last 7 years, their movies haven't been the greatest. We've had a few duds, we've had a few movies that are solid but not great, but we have had a few incredible movies like Toy Story 3 and Inside Out, which I loved. So I was really hoping Coco would be another movie like that. Every time I go into a Pixar movie, I'm extremely excited, but I'm keeping my expectations in check because I know that sometimes they can disappoint me. But Coco is not a disappointment, actually. This movie is one of the best animated movies of the entire decade so far. I'm serious. This movie was fantastic. There is so much to take from this movie, like so much. So often do I see animated movies that are just kind of like made to appeal to kids only. They're just like a bunch of kid nonsense with stupid jokes, and they're just kind of like these movies that are made to appeal to kids to make a lot of money because they know kids movies make tons at the bank. Like Illumination and Blue Sky, those companies, they usually just make movies that are just like basic kids movies that are kind of stupid that just appeal to kids, and they don't have anything else in them. They don't have an emotional story that's going to stick with you. They just kind of make a quick movie and write a script that's just kind of basic to make a quick buck. And that's what a lot of animation studios do, and it's kind of disappointing to see that most kids movies I see nowadays are just like that, actually. But usually Pixar goes against that, and Coco absolutely goes against that. There is so much to take from this movie. There are tons of messages about following your dreams, and the fact that life isn't always a happy-go-lucky thing. It is actually a thing that contains disappointments. Life is not a great thing. It can really batter you. Disappointments can happen in your life, and you're gonna have to find a way to deal with that. It's about being remembered. It's about how people may not be what they seem on the outside. There is so much to take from Coco, and that's one of the things I loved about this movie. There is so much adults will see in this movie and understand that they have been through a situation like that. Because this movie is really a love letter to dreamers and people who are adults now and have been through these events in their life. Miguel in this movie, the kid, is awesome. I loved this character. I related to him so much in this movie because I think that was one of the things Coco was going for with this movie, is it was trying to be relatable, and I think it really paid off. I related to this kid so much. Constantly in this movie, he is shunned for trying to follow his musical dreams. He wants to be a musician. Everyone hates him for that. Everyone wants him to not do that. Everyone wants him to conform to the norm, which is kind of what society is like nowadays. If you don't conform to the norm, you're kind of just this kid that is awkward and doesn't have a lot of friends, which is kind of like me. It's cool. I'm kind of just like this awkward kid that's different and doesn't like the same stuff as everybody else. And this kid absolutely looks up to his favorite singer, and that reminds me of my heroes. Like maybe Steven Spielberg or Damien Chazelle, who's a recent director. Or Frank Sinatra even though I don't want to be a singer. He's one of my heroes. I look up to people similarly to how he did, and I've been looked down on doing so. People have called me weird and strange because I look up to these certain things that people don't normally look up to. The animation in this movie is a cliche to say that it's good, but it is legitimately fantastic in this movie. There is so much creative design that went into this world. It's a really cool world to explore. It has so much creative ideas about it, like the whole Day of the Dead thing and the afterlife. There was so many creative ideas about passing on to the afterlife and being a ghost and visiting your living family. There was so many clever ideas. It's kind of like you're looking into the life of what a ghost would be if ghosts were real. It was really cool. Pixar is always known for having really clever ideas with that, and that was one of the things I took out of Coco. There were so many cool, clever ideas in this movie. The humor is really good. Once again, there's a lot of great moments in this movie that had me laughing. The score is fantastic. The pace is really good. Another thing I see about animated movies nowadays is like there's constantly times where they kind of just slow down or focus on characters that shouldn't be focused on. Like I saw Despicable Me 3 recently, which I did not like at all. I thought it was pretty bad. And one of the reasons, besides tons of other reasons, is because the movie always stalled. It focused on things that were so, like, pointless and just there to pad the movie, and there is so much stuff like that in kids' movies, because they're like, if they try to do something too serious and deep, and something that can actually stick with you, they're afraid that kids will like fall asleep in the theater and be bored. That's one of the things I see often in kids' movies. They constantly have to have unnecessary subplots to pad the movie's runtime and do something cute, like have a cute character doing something cute on the sidelines. Disney even does this at times, and it annoys me. There is constantly movies that do this, especially with the Minions, which just kind of stall the movie. Coco never does that. They do have a side character in the dog character that's with Miguel, who's like the stray dog, but he actually had some good stuff to do in this movie. He was funny, he was entertaining, he moved along with the plot. They didn't have a whole subplot about the dog trying to chase a cat or something, which is kind of like what I'd see in an animated movie to try to appeal to kids. They never did that. The dog was constantly on these adventures with all the characters, and he was constantly like vital to the actual story, which I really liked. One of my problems with Finding Dory, which was a really fun movie, but it does have problems. One of my problems with it is that it tried to sugarcoat everything and say everything in life is going to be fine. If you haven't seen Finding Dory yet, there's a bit of spoilers here. But at the end, Dory's trying to find her mother and father, and they made it seem like her mother and father were dead. And I was like, oh my goodness, that could actually be a really cool thing to add in this movie. It'd be ballsy, but it would work. It would show kids watching this movie that not everything is going to be okay and great and grand as you live this life. There is going to be hardships to go through. But instead, the parents were just alive the whole time, putting shells to try to find Dory and all that. And it was kind of just like, what was the point of everything? There's not really a moral there now. You're just sugarcoating this movie to make everything seem okay. Coco never does that. Obviously, there are happy things in this movie, but there are constantly disappointments and sad things and things that are going to make you tear up in this movie. The best animated movies can, in a way, tell you that life kind of sucks. It's not all glamour and wonderful. It has a lot of struggles in it, and Coco does that immensely well. There is constantly moments where there are bad things that happen, but they don't get solved. They stay unresolved. They stay a disappointment and a sad moment in the movie. Things that are sad don't get resolved. This movie did that so well. It never sugarcoated anything. There are legitimately dark themes in this movie, and I loved it. I really want Lee Unkrich, however you say that name, to keep directing movies with Pixar, because this guy is fantastic. He even replied to one of my tweets I did at him, which was really cool. The guy that's been working with Pixar for so long acknowledged me, this little guy that's just sitting in rooms making videos because he likes movies so much. That was crazy to see that that had happened. The only problem I have with Coco is that during the beginning there's a lot of exposition. There's moments where they have to narrate stuff or explain stuff really obviously, like just like, oh, this is that, that's this, that's that, even though it kind of was obvious that the person they were talking to in the scene would have already known that, so that was just a thing that happened towards the beginning of the movie. But it instantly stops once Miguel gets to the afterlife place. But otherwise, this movie spoke to me. It was constantly moving. There is deep themes, there's things that adults are gonna love, and I think Coco is a movie that is really special. I'm gonna give Coco an A. Don't take your kids to see the Emoji Movie, or something stupid like that. Take them to see Coco. This is a movie that actually takes risks, it has creativity behind it, and it doesn't sugarcoat things for your kids. There are things that kids are gonna go away from this movie actually thinking about, and things that are actually gonna shock them, because this movie is also full of surprises. Alright guys, if you like this video, be sure to like it, be sure to subscribe, be sure to follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and I will see you all next time. Bye bye.